In the words of L.A. Knight, let me talk to you. Welcome, one and all, to Monday Night Nerd. Thank you all for joining. I am so happy to be here. Happy Canada Day. Happy long weekend. I hope you all had a great long weekend. I had a great long weekend. As I was saying over in the Facebook Live that we do 15 minutes before the show, I need to title that. I'm thinking, I don't know what to call it. Give me some comments. Tell me what you think I should call that 15-minute preview. I don't want to steal something from my buddies at the Geek and Co podcast because they do the same thing. That's where I stole it from. But was talking about it during the live video that I enjoyed this weekend, but as with most long weekends, when you have a lot of fun, it goes by so fast, and then you're just like, oh, I wish it wouldn't, but then you have so much fun. So it's a fair play and a fair balance between the two. Saturday was a lot of fun. Sunday was a lot of fun. Those days felt like normal days. They didn't take too long, but I was kind of inside because of the weather. But today flew by, and within no time it was dinner time, and I'm like, I gotta get ready for the show. But thank you all for joining us. I'm greatly appreciative you are here. We're gonna talk a little cosplay because right now I'm an off duty cosplayer. We're gonna talk about cosplay performances. I have done several cosplay performances in my life within the past 10 years, and I'm going to give you guys out there, my loyal viewers, some tips on how to make your cosplay performance a little better. I have failed multiple times. I'm here to make your life better. And I'm going to tell you some ins and outs of different cons. I'm going to tell you guys what to do, what to expect, how to get over those crazy nerves that kick in. I've seen some people have so much anxiety during these performances because it's really a form of public speaking, and that can make a lot of people nervous. So I'm going to talk all about that in the main event. But first, we got some news because this week I went to my first wrestling show live that I've been to in several years. Thank you, pandemic and finances and everything else. However, when I said last week I was going to my first wrestling show, it actually turned into two wrestling shows. Thank you to AEW. They were live in Hamilton, Ontario on Wednesday and Thursday. Now, I had originally bought tickets for the Wednesday show, Dynamite and Rampage, which was almost 7 to 8, 9, 10, 11, almost 4 hours of wrestling live. And they had a second show the night after, which was Collision and Ring of Honor. And I was really interested in seeing that, but I paid, $80 for Dynamite and Rampage. I really didn't want to pay another $80, and I was sitting in the stands for Dynamite with my buddy Thomas next to me, and I was telling him that they recently dropped the price to $50 for tickets, and I was like, that's not a bad price, $30 off ain't bad. And he hopped on his phone and he went, well, Mike, actually they're $15 now. And I said, $15, you got a deal. So right there in my seat during Dynamite, I bought tickets for the next night for Collision because I wanted to see my favorite wrestler, CM Punk, live, because I've been a fan of wrestling since like the late 90s, and CM Punk, because he is straight edge and I don't drink or anything like that, I've always been a Punk fan, but I've never seen him live. He came in right at the end of when I really became a fan, and I don't think I ever got to experience it. I don't remember ever seeing him live. So getting the opportunity to see him live in my hometown, I was super excited for. So I bought tickets for the next night, and I got to say, it was a heck of an experience. The first night on Dynamite and Rampage was really cool. They had a lot of fun things going on. They had a stacked card with Chris Jericho, Sting, the Sammy Guevara, all the stars of AEW were in the house. It was such a good show. And even local wrestler, now AEW superstar, Ethan Page was in the house, which I was so excited for. I was wearing my Ethan Page pants. I was repping him. Big fan of Ethan Page. When I trained to be a professional wrestler back in the day, Ethan Page was at the gym training as well. He was already doing shows, but he was doing some training with us. So to see someone that you trained with go all the way to be on national television as a wrestler, that's pretty cool. And I've always been a fan of his. So seeing him on a big stage in his hometown was really, really cool. For those at Nickel City Comic Con this weekend who were expecting to see Sting there as one of the headlining superstars, I greatly apologize. Not that it was my fault, but Sting decided to do a splash off of a ladder in the ring to the floor through Sammy Guevara and a table. And he came up a little short. It looked clean from where we were sitting up on the side, but looking back on some replays, he kind of landed on Sammy's knees. And I think he knocked a tooth loose and kind of hurt himself in whatever area. I don't know if it was internal injuries or just bashed his face up or whatever, but he was pretty sore at the end. He cut a promo saying his tooth was loose and he was pretty banged up. So to hear the next couple days that he wasn't going to be at Nickel City Comic Con in Buffalo, I kind of understood why, because he took a hell of a beating. Great show. Started off with Dynamite, went into Rampage after, and Rampage was the B show to the main event of Dynamite, and it was fun, but it kind of went down a little bit and kind of sat there and it ended on sort of a low note. Like there was actually a good section of fans that watched Dynamite, and then when they announced that Rampage was going to start, a bunch of people left, which kind of shocked me because I'm like, dude, you paid for 2 shows. Stay. Mind you, it ran till 11:30 at night. So if you work in the morning bright and early, I get why you're leaving, but a lot of people left. I did pick up some merchandise the next night because the first night they had almost no good merch there. They had a lot of merchandise from the Forbidden Door pay-per-view, which was in Toronto 3 nights before that. And that kind of shocked me because I get that they wanted to get rid of stock, but they only really had a couple other shirts there and a bunch of accessories. So I was kind of disappointed. I was kind of hoping to get a shirt for the tag team, The Acclaimed, but they really didn't have a good one. So I was a little disappointed by that. But the next night was really interesting. So I had purchased my ticket at Dynamite, and it was up on the side about 16, 17 rows up. And I knew a guy there, a buddy of mine named Brian. He was sitting on the floor. We chatted before the event started. And we were kind of texting throughout the event saying, hey, this is really fun. This is really fun. And I said, hey, are you going to Collision tomorrow in our Ring of Honor? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, I just bought a ticket, so I'll see you tomorrow. And he messaged back. He said, do you want to maybe get floor tickets? And I went, how are we going to get floor tickets? He goes, let me work on it. I said, okay. So he picked me up the next night, and we get to the arena, and instead of walking in the main entrance, he took me off to the side entrance, and we met with the gentleman, and he gave us, without even really saying a word to him, he gave us some tickets, and he gave us a wristband. And what that basically was we became seat fillers. And what that is if you don't have a capacity crowd at an event, and you're shooting a TV show, you want that TV show to look like it's full. And the only way to do that is to have a couple extra people standing on the side to fill in gaps if people are to leave, if people don't buy tickets. And that's basically what we were. There was about, I want to say 50 of us. And we went down to the bottom of Cops Coliseum. It's still going to be Cops Coliseum to me. And we were sitting downstairs, and we kind of got the whole, this is what's going on. You're going to be kind of moving throughout the show wherever we need filling and yada, yada, yada. And I said, no problem. Completely understand it. And then we were kind of sitting there waiting, and we weren't being let in yet. And Brian had a good idea, and he said, let me go look at something. And he walked out, and he came back a few minutes later. He said, do you want to just go in over there where they're letting the general admission people in? And I went, what are we waiting here for? And he goes, nothing. I said, I think we should. So we went for a walk, and we ended up walking to the second row behind the commentator booth. And we sat down, and we never moved because no one came to fill in those seats. So for Collision and Ring of Honor, we were 2 rows behind the commentary team of Kevin Kelly and Nigel McGuinness, and it was freaking cool. It is one of the best seats I've ever sat in because you get the full screen, you get the ring, you get the commentating table. It was so cool. And I gotta admit, Collision was a better show. The amount, I want to say Dynamite was good, but Collision was great. Having people like FTR there, CM Punk, I got to see CM Punk. I got to sing Cult of Personality in an arena with wrestling fans. That was really cool. I got a CM Punk shirt too because I had to. The Bullet Club was there, Bullet Club Gold with Jay White and the new Gun Club members, which was really cool. Yeah, it was a great show. It was such a good show. I was almost within arm's length of high-fiving CM Punk. I was really cool. I was really excited to do that, but didn't get a chance. But yeah, it was a great show. But unfortunately, the same thing happened as the night before because after they shot Collision, they shot Ring of Honor, which was fun, but half the people left. And when you have the people like CM Punk and Samoa Joe and all these big names, and then you go into Ring of Honor, which doesn't have the biggest names in the industry, it was a little bit of a drop. And you could tell by the audience, they were kind of bored and they were on their phones a lot. I got to admit, I went on my phone a couple times because there were some matches that I'm like, I don't even know who these people are. I really don't care. Yeah. But overall, it was a heck of a 2-day experience. I will probably go see AEW again. It really depends on ticket prices. Again, the only reason I went that second night was because there were $15 tickets. And I got something here that I have a thing, and it's a weird thing. I like collecting things that most people don't think about, or just things that I like. So if I go to an event, if I'm going to see a musical act, I love guitar picks. If I can get a guitar pick, I'm a happy person, but that's what everyone wants. Same with set lists and stuff like that. Actually, I've never got a set list. I've never received a set list. But guitar picks, stuff like that, drumsticks. I've got a couple drumsticks over here from shows. I love that stuff. But I also like the weird stuff that nobody else really cares about, but I like. One of the first times I had this happen was SmackDown, WWE SmackDown was in Hamilton 2 days after SummerSlam in Toronto, which I had seen SummerSlam as well. At that SummerSlam, Randy Orton won his first World Heavyweight Championship. And the night after that, he was with the faction Evolution, and they had a big celebration where confetti fell and pyro went off and da-da-da-da. And Evolution turned on Randy, and that's another story. The next night at SmackDown, they had the same barricades set up, and in the barricades was a whole bunch of the gold confetti from his celebration, and I grabbed 3 pieces of it because why not? Like, that is something, it means nothing. I can't prove that that's where it came from, but I know it. I don't need to prove it to anybody. It's a memory for me. Same when I saw Ghost at Hamilton or at Cops Coliseum just before the pandemic. They have a song where a whole bunch of money falls from the ceiling. I got a couple of those pieces of money, and they're in my binder with all my other celebrity stuff. When we were leaving Collision, we were walking down the sidewalk, and something caught my eye on the ground, and that is an AEW, I know it's backwards, AEW worker sticker that you would put on the crew shirts. And this is from June 28th. Let me see if you can zoom in on that. Probably not. And I grabbed this because I have seen Metallica ones go for stupid prices nowadays from their old 90s tours. And I'm not saying I'm going to try and sell this, but I thought this is something that not many people have that I just kind of dig. So it wasn't complete. It was on the ground. It wasn't completely stuck to the ground. So I was easily pulled it up and I just threw it on a little piece of cardboard. And this is going to go in my little binder for a nice little memory from going to AEW Collision. And yeah, it was a pretty fun show, I have to admit. But that is all for AEW. I got a couple more little things we're going to talk about here in the newsy news, and then we're going to get into the main event of talking about cosplay performances. But first, I'm going to have a drinky drink. Let's do a quick 2 reviews. So this weekend, I was able to take a moment and watch the first episode of Secret Invasion by Marvel on Disney+. That was pretty cool. It gave me a little bit of a Winter Soldier, or not Winter Soldier, the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV show, which I appreciated. It's one of my favorites personally. I like the espionage type feel of the show. Sam Jackson is great in it. I think the concept of the show is somewhat similar to the graphic novel, if I remember correctly. I haven't read Secret Invasion in forever, so I could be completely wrong. There is probably somebody that's going to rip me apart for saying that it's close. But I enjoyed it. I'm going to watch episode 2 after we're done the show tonight. And yeah, it looks like a good series. And I think there's 8 episodes. So I'm interested to see where they're going to go with this. It was obviously a cliffhanger ending to keep people intrigued. So I'm interested. I think they've got a good show on their hands. The other thing I want to talk about is something I want to talk about last week, but now I can talk about it because I've actually finished it. I listened to an audio graphic novel. I went on to the Libby app, which for those who don't know what the Libby app is, it's a digital version of public libraries. And if you have a public library card, you can go onto the Libby app and download books, regular books or audiobooks. I'm an audiobook person. And I downloaded I Pledge Allegiance to the Mask, which is an audiobook from the graphic novels of The Mask, the Jim Carrey Mask. And if you've just seen the Jim Carrey movie, it's great, but the graphic novels are dark. They are way darker than what you see in the movie. The movie is very PG. It is a very R-rated book. And the audiobook is so much like the comics. It is a story about a couple different political figures who have recently worn the mask, and they are trying to become the president of the United States. And I don't want to say that when the mask lands on one of the candidates, he somewhat acts like a political figure that used to be in power, but he kind of does. And it's I want to find out when this was written to see if that's the inspiration or if it's just a pure coincidence. But it is such a good book. There are characters from the Mask movie in the book, and there are some that aren't because of reasons that they explain in the book, but it is very good. It is very good. It is very much like an audio drama like you'd hear on old-timey radio, but I highly recommend it. I Pledge Allegiance to the Mask. It is 2 hours long. Yeah, I think it's about 2.5 hours long. Very good listen. Very, very good listen. Just listen to it to work every day, half-hour drive. So highly, highly recommend it. Last little bit of news before we jump into the main event. Summer movies. Let's talk about summer movies. I've read a couple things about The Flash, and I've read a couple things about Indiana Jones, and my buddy Tara, shout out to Tara, mentioned something in the pre-show about Indiana Jones and how it did not do well in its opening weekend, as well as we're well documented that The Flash did not. From what I've read, a bunch of the Hollywood people are thinking that the idea of the summer blockbuster is kind of dead. I disagree completely. on that. I think movies like Across the Spider-Verse, I think movies like last year's Top Gun, they are the reason why. And let me take that back. I was going to say something that was completely wrong. Those are the movies that people want to see. And if you give people a movie they want to see, they'll go see it. Like, I see a lot of people, not even just movies, but businesses in general, say that, well, we did the best thing we could and it's the audience's problem. They should want it. No, the market will always tell you what they want. And they'll tell you it by either spending money or not. And if they're not spending money, it's not the audience's problem. That's a you problem. And I think, people are looking at The Flash and saying, I can't believe it did that bad. I can't believe people don't want to see it. There's two reasons why The Flash didn't work. And you could see it a mile away. And I don't understand why nobody in Hollywood can see why. The Ezra Miller situation is number one. It was well documented, not even just recently, for a year at least, that he was a problem and people did not want to support him. Them. Sorry, 2023. Them. They did not want to support them. Number two, if you don't have a deep knowledge of comic book movies from the DC universe, going back to, when was the Christopher Reeve Superman movie? The 80s? Half of the references that they make in that movie mean nothing to you. And I'm not going to spoil what one of the cameos is in the movie, but there is a person playing a character in the movie that was never even an actual movie. It was a script that was well documented in a story by somebody. And they made it into an actual thing on the movie screen. If you don't know the script or the story that was told by a certain individual, that meant nothing to you and confused the hell out of you. It's stuff like that to me as a fanboy, I appreciate, but I understand that the general audience doesn't give a crap about that. When it comes to the Indiana Jones franchise, I'm going to speak on this not knowing that I've not seen any of the Indiana Jones completely. I know the concept. I've seen enough of it to understand it. I've never seen one of them from beginning to end, which I need to see them. I know. The last movie no one liked. And even back then, which was 2000, before, I think it was 2010, if not earlier, even then they went, Harrison Ford's old. Now we're doing 10 years forward, and you're now going, okay, now he's got another decade under his belt. We all know he ain't throwing a whip and jumping out of stuff without a ton of CGI. And I believe, again, not seeing the new movie, I believe the first bunch of that movie is a de-aged version of him doing a flashback, which what I've heard from everybody is that is the best part of the movie, because it's a young Indiana Jones being a young Indiana Jones. And later on, he's an old person, which is, he's old. We get it. But you're putting him in a role that is a very heavily action character. And I saw it not working from day one. And I think it will do well once it ends up on Disney Plus, because I think a lot of people will want to see it for curiosity's sake. But to pay hard-earned money to go to the cinema to see those, I don't think so. Going back to what I originally said, you put out a movie like Top Gun, which you're like, this is a movie I need to see in a theater, or Across the Spider-Verse, where you're going, that last one was one of the best movies ever made, you'll get people into the cinema. But just don't put out things that no one cares about or has already got preconceived notions on what they think is going to happen and them not being good. So I don't think the summer blockbuster's dead. I think Hollywood needs to think about what they're putting as their Hollywood blockbuster to get people in the audience. I think Barbie's going to do great. I find it funny that Barbie and Oppenheimer are probably going to be your biggest summer movies when everyone thought that Indy was going to be one of the tops, and along with Flash because Michael Keaton was coming back. So Alex saying that Michael Keaton was amazing and so was the new Supergirl. They both look amazing. Michael Keaton looks incredible, and so does the new Supergirl. I saw a video of her getting the suit or getting told she was going to be Supergirl, and that's great. I want to see it for her. And and that's the thing. I'm a huge comic book fan. I like Flash. I like Batman. I haven't seen it yet because my buddies didn't want to go see it because of the Ezra Miller situation. And DC, I know you're not watching, but hey, I'm going to say it anyways. Expect the same thing from Aquaman. Like, you've said Mira is going to be in the next movie. People said they're not going to see it because of her. You're probably going to get a similar result. Maybe they'll forget by that point. Maybe she won't be as big of a role and you don't put her in the trailer. But I got a feeling you're going to have a lower amount of box office than you did for the original simply on that factor alone. Maybe it's just me. That's it for the news. We're going to jump into the main event. I'm just going to have another drinky poop. My throat is like super dry today. Alex saying, I think the other issue. Yeah. They just did the Flashpoint series in the TV show. So, I mean, if you're that big of a fan, you've kind of already seen it. And I think I think we can all agree Grant Gustin is a better Flash. I think if you did the same thing with Arrow and you put someone in there that wasn't Stephen Amell, you're going to get people going, why don't you just cast them? Marvel's doing it with theirs. Like, you just put them in a movie. Like, I don't know. DC's weird. And you know what? I don't even say DC. Warner Brothers is weird because it feels like Warner Brothers keeps just putting their hands in stuff that's just like, stay in your lane. Just stop touching things. Anyways, enough about that. Sponsor for the night. As always, you guys, if you've been here, you know my sponsor is always my beautiful wife. Without my wife, I would not be doing this. I would not have this beautiful home. I would not have the cojones to be doing this, to meet half the people in the chat. I wouldn't know any of them because she wouldn't be saying, go be a nerd, go meet people who are nerds. And because of her telling me to do that, I get to hang out and meet all these great, amazing people. Yes, Alex, she does rock. And hun, if you're watching, I love you. Greatly appreciate you. Let's talk about cosplay performances. Hey, guys, did you know I'm a cosplayer? I kind of don't know how to shut up about it sometimes. So I cosplay, and I've been cosplaying for about 10 years now. Actually, it's been post 10 years. It's been almost, oh my God, it's almost like 12 years. And since about year 2, I have usually done a Masquerade performance at Fan Expo. That has been my con of choice at Fan Expo Canada. And recently, the past couple of years, I've started going to Anime North. I've started attending Anime North because it is a really fun con that also has a really good masquerade. Now, throughout the years, I have improved, changed, modified, whatever term you want to use, my cosplay performances. And I've learned over the years what has worked and what hasn't, because this is, one of the first tips I will give you. When you are doing a masquerade, and we're going to focus mostly on masquerade tonight because that is probably the biggest performance. A lot of these tips will work in other things as well. If you're taking photos in your cosplay, these tips will probably help. If you're just walking the con floor and wanting to interact with other cosplayers and wanting to, have little interactions with them in character, these tips will also bring value to you as well. But we're going to mainly focus on the masquerade performance. The masquerade performances come in many, many different requirements, every con is different. So I've participated at Fan Expo Canada 8 times. I'll be participating, hopefully, knock on wood, this year as well. I participated twice at Anime North. When you are participating, this was going back to what I originally said before I did a left turn. When you're performing at a masquerade, I highly recommend it that before your performance, if you can, and especially after your performance, because I've never experienced them not allowing you to do this, try your best to sit in the audience and watch other performers and think about what they're doing and take some ideas from them. Because if you just sit back and watch your own stuff, you're not going to be able to see what works and what doesn't unless you go back and watch your own performances. And even that, you're only getting your perspective because you have a bias to it because it's you. Every con is different. When I have been to I've performed at 2 cons. I've seen masquerades at other cons. I don't know what it's like at Niagara Falls anymore. I know they have one. I know, actually, I don't know. I don't know if Hamilton does anymore. I think they do. They used to because my wife competed at one year. I've dealt with 3 different requirements, even though I've performed only at 2 cons. Fan Expo Canada, when I first started, was one way. Fan Expo 2018-19 was a different way. And I'll even say 2021, probably this year, or 2022-2023 is probably going to be its own. And Anime North is a different way. So let's start out with what it used to be, because that's the way I've done the most. So when it comes to Fan Expo the old way, and I believe this is way that several other conventions have done it, because Anime North sort of does a version of this. What you would do is you would sign up, send in your stuff, send in all your detailed information of what your cosplay is, who you are, what you want to do, and if you want to bring audio. Now, the reason they want to know if you have audio is because the whole thing, you're going to go on stage and you're going to perform for up to 1 minute. You do not have any access to a microphone, but if you have audio that you want to do a skit to, you can give that to them. Now, back in the day, we didn't have MP3s, were not as readily available as they are now, and they were kind of still new technology. So I would bring a burnt disc, a burnt CD with my audio track, and you'd get about a minute, and then you would go off, and that would be it. When Fan Expo was purchased by Informa in around 2015 or 2016, 2017-18 area, they changed. And what that became is instead of the host, who I wish I remember his name, Gord was the host back in the day. He was a great host, and he would go up and he would interact with the crowd. He would do a little bit of fun jokes, and honestly, the crowd loved him. They really loved him. And as a cosplayer, I loved working with Gord. He was a great host. I hope he's doing well. I unfortunately don't see him anymore, but I hope he's doing well. They did a great job. Once it was purchased by Informa, it changed. They now have 2 hosts who have a different approach. So the first year that they switched, I did not compete. I don't remember exactly why. I think it was more I'd heard some rumors that things had changed, and I kind of wanted to see what it was like. And this was one of the conventions that one of my best friends was going to go to. It was his and her first time to go. And I told them the Masquerade is one of the best parts of it. You should go. I'll sit with you and we'll watch it together. It was rough, to say the least. Now, I don't blame the hosts at all. The hosts are great. I've talked to them. I've interacted with them. They're great. what I feel happens at the new Fan Expo is there is the performance, which the new Fan Expo, you don't get audio. What happens is you go out and you have 3 poses and then you walk off. The host introduces you, 3 poses, and you walk off. To say that is a difference is an understatement if you're a cosplayer. The hosts were a little awkward the first year, and I think they were still figuring out their groove, figuring out what they were doing. The second year was I don't want to say crowning achievement, but the best Masquerade for me. And we'll get more into that later, but that was a big one. The way that once the pandemic hit, from what I understand, a lot of things got blown out of the water because of, they had a year and a half, because that first one back was a little rough due to budgets and how many people actually wanted to go. The amount that they were able to do for the Masquerade was an issue. The first full year back, which was last year, we had about 15 seconds on stage. We could hit one pose and walk off. And the main reason for that was they had I don't want to say they double booked, but usually the Masquerade was the last thing on the Saturday. What happened was they booked a Q&A after us. I believe it was the Lord of the Rings reunion. And the problem with that was we had a hard deadline to get off the stage and gone and get everybody out. So we unfortunately only had a few minutes on stage, a few seconds on stage, and then we were gone. Which, when you work on a costume for a whole year, if not longer, it's a little frustrating to walk up there, strike a pose, and walk off within 15 seconds. Not even. I wouldn't even say, and I'm not exaggerating, I think 15 seconds is pushing it. I think it's closer to 10. I'm hoping this year will be a little different. I've heard that they might try and make it a little better, but I've also heard there's 2 back-to-back Q&As after us. So we'll see. Anime North is obviously a heavily anime convention based on the name. And they have a very similar way of doing the Masquerade as the original Fan Expo, where you send in all your information, you send in your audio, and you go on stage and you have a little bit of time, 1 minute usually, to do your performance. The difference between the original Fan Expo and Anime North is Anime North gives you lighting as well. It's not crazy lighting. It's not, we can give you a little bit of color and that's about it. On and off. I always say on and off is what we can do. But sometimes we can do color. Sometimes we can do little things here and there. So you have a little more customization when you go to Anime North. You could speak to the host before, but it seems a little more encouraged at Anime North to have a conversation with the host beforehand to say, how do you want me to address you? How do you want it to be said? Do you want it to be more fun, more aggressive, more blah, 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 blah. So out of all the conventions, even though Anime North is specifically, I wouldn't say specifically, is heavily anime, Anime North gives you a lot of freedom. And we'll get into why at the end, because there is a reason why. Now, let's talk about how to prepare, because that's a big thing. When you're performing at a Masquerade, you really need to prep. And let's start off with your costume, first of all. When you're going to compete in a Masquerade, there's a requirement that goes across the board, at least across the board from what I've seen. And that is 80% of your cosplay needs to be handmade, or not handmade. It has to be made. So if you purchase a Spider-Man suit, you can participate in the Masquerade if there's space available, but you're not winning an award. You need to at least have 80% of your costume made. I say handmade, but I won with Luigi, and a lot of the fabric part of the costume, shirt, overalls, hat, etc., were modified versions of clothing. So that counts. You don't have to make everything from scratch. I remember talking to a cosplayer when I think it was a couple years in, and they were saying, I made this jacket like completely handmade, and a bunch of us were like, dude, great, but you could have just bought one. Like it was a good jacket, but it wasn't like that wasn't the selling point of the costume. It was a lot of work for something that kind of just got lost in the background. When it comes to the actual performance, prep and rehearse your performance as much as possible. After seeing so many cosplayers, I call it one of two things. You either have the hype the crowd performer, or you have the dance performer. And what those are to me is I've hit a spot in my performance where I've run out of what to do or I forgot what to do. And I'm either going to hype the crowd to cheer or I'm going to break into a random dance. Now, if you blank on stage, I completely understand that and I have no problem. If your character does not do that in whatever medium they are a part of, I feel that is one of the most cringe-worthy things that happen. Because, again, one of two things. You're either not really thinking of what the character would do, which we'll talk more about that in a moment, and you're just going, the crowd is not giving me the reaction I feel like I deserve. I'm going to do this to hype them up and get them to cheer for me. Now, the two things I would tell every cosplayer that wants to perform what they should do is try not to con crunch, because con crunch is an enemy of every cosplayer. Try to get your cosplay done within a week of the masquerade. That is my rule. If it is not done a week before, whatever is done is what's going up on stage. Because I want a week to wear that costume regularly and go for a walk to make sure that everything stays attached and doesn't feel or look awkward. If I am doing a performance of some type that is going to involve movement or audio or whatever, I try my hardest to at least rehearse it 3 times. Mainly for audio cues for me, because I'm such an audio guy. I try and make sure that I perform cleanly 1 time at least. I also will try to get the audio onto my phone, so when I'm back in the green room, I can hear that song a couple times and sort of walk through it in my head of what I'm going to do on stage. This is important, especially if you want to try and do a full minute performance. And I stress this, you do not have to do a full minute. It is a maximum, not a requirement. The amount of times I've seen cosplayers try to push a full minute when they really have about 15 seconds is a lot of people. If you only got 15 seconds, cool. Just do 15 seconds. No problem. Don't feel like you're undershooting it, you're wasting time. Don't. 15 seconds, a good 15 seconds is better than a bad 1 minute any day of the week. And I think any judge, any cosplayer will tell you that. It's very important to make sure that you use that time wisely. Because again, if you're doing something, and I'm going to use an example of mine. The first time I ever competed with Luigi, which is the only cosplay performance I do not have the video for, because no, I couldn't find anybody that uploaded it. I was doing my apocalyptic version of Luigi, and I wanted to bring the emotion of what the character was going through. So my idea of the apocalyptic Luigi was Mario has been kidnapped. and Bowser has taken over the Mushroom Kingdom, and now I am the last surviving Mario brother, and I am the last hope for the Mushroom Kingdom. So I used a very somber track with almost a radio voice over top of it of me saying basically, Mario has been captured. I will always strive to find my brother because brothers always help each other. And I wanted to bring a somber tone to it because when I was in drama class in high school, I always saw people try and do comedy and it failed a lot of the times. So I tried to bring more of the emotion into it. I realized that performance that is unbelievably hard to do when the audience is in such a happy mood, because as soon as the audio started, everyone laughed. And even it took me out of the performance for a second. And that's why I really want to see the performance, because I think you can see me kind of take like oh, I wasn't expecting that. So going through it and kind of understanding what the audience could think is very important. And even showing it to your friends. Like, I know a lot of people have stage fright, and we're going to get into that in 1 second of how to get through all that. But if you can videotape yourself doing the performance, that is an extra bit that will help you a lot. If you can show it to people just to get their thoughts on it, is that cherry on the cake, because they will be, hopefully, if they're good friends, they will be honest with you and tell you what they think of the performance, what you should tweak, maybe you need to change this before you go in front of hundreds of people and perform it live. When you get to the day of and you are ready, you have your audio, you have your costume, you're ready to go, there is going to be at least an hour that you will be in the green room, probably more, that you can either interact with cosplayers, or what I like to do, from not through the whole hour, but at least for a little bit of time, as I said, put the audio on my phone and maybe not physically walk through it, but sort of hit my marks in my mind of, I want to do this at this point, I want to do this at this point, I want to do this at this point. Try and go through it to get that mental, your mind into the moment. Again, I'm a very much audio person, so even crowd noise, like on live albums, I can pick up the sounds of a crowd, and I can know, like, I'm 2 seconds away from this kicking, or I can hit, I'm a second away from this. That's me. I don't know if everybody can do that. I doubt it, but that's something I can do. Go through it, take your time, breathe. So this is where the stress comes in, and this is where I see it more than anything. When you have an hour, if not more, to sit backstage with other cosplayers, and if you're not talking, because personally, I'm a very shy person. I know that's shocking to people because of what I'm doing right now, but I am an actual very shy person, and I personally am always alone when I'm in a masquerade, and I don't really have a lot of friends that do this. So I have a lot of time by myself. And if you're a nervous person, that is terrifying. And I've seen a lot of people have a lot of anxiety. And I'm going to talk about one situation that was really stressful for a lot of people. And that was actually where I did the best performance. And that was Fan Expo 2019, where I did my last masquerade as Luigi. Now, before we went on stage, we weren't sure what we were going to do because we didn't have any audio for anybody or anything. So when the host met with us backstage, they said, you're going to walk on stage and I'm going to be there and I'm going to ask you a question. And the question is going to be about the fandom that you're cosplaying from. I'm not going to tell you what the question is, though. And that was the moment when everybody's anxiety skyrocketed. Because now you're taking someone who looks like they like the fandom, but you're now going to question them in front of a live audience. Now, do I think this was the best way to do it? For me, yes, because I'm okay with that. However, there was a couple people around me when we were waiting in line that were having legitimate panic attacks. And the best way that I was able to calm them down was I said, "Do you know the fandom that you're cosplaying?" And they said, "Yes." I said, "Okay. So you have a base knowledge of the fandom. That's good. Now, do you think the host is going to ask you a question that is so deep in the fandom that they're going to make you look like you don't know what you're talking about?" And they said, "No." And I said, "Okay. So if they're not going to make you look bad, you're safe, because in the end, if they make you look bad, they look bad, and they don't want to do that." I said, and the best thing I can advise you of is when you're wondering, what do I do? What do I say? Don't think of it as you. You're not on stage. Your character is on stage. So what would your character say? And I say this to anybody who is worried about armor falling off or tripping on stage or something going wrong. You're not on stage. Your character is on stage. So if you're Tony Stark and you're in an Iron Man suit and you walk along the stage and a shoulder piece falls off, what would Tony do? Tony would probably get a little frustrated, call Pepper and say, "We need to fix this." Or he would make a joke out of it. If you tripped, what would your character do? Would Drax, or even nobody cosplays Drax that I know of, if Star-Lord tripped over something, what would he do? What would, Luigi do? Well, that's what I thought when I went on stage, is when I did my ghost hunting Luigi's Mansion version, I went up and I struck a pose and I went, what would Luigi do in a situation like this? Well, Luigi's terrified of the world. So I'm standing there in pose and I can see the host coming up behind me, ready to ask the question. And when she gets to my side and starts talking, I turn and I scream like a girl. And that got a huge reaction. And then a whole time I'm just talking about how terrified I am because she scared me. And it's that moment where I went, this is working, because I'm the character right now. I'm not Myers Corp Creations. I'm Luigi right now. How would Luigi react to every situation? It helps that I can do the voice. I will admit that helps a little bit, but you don't have to. You don't have to. That's just an extra cherry on top. Also, when it comes to dealing with anxiety, I completely understand that if you're not a big fan of public speaking, you don't want to get on that stage. Completely understand that. However, I will let you know that when you get on that stage, the lights that are on there are so bright, you don't see the audience. You may see a couple in the corners because they don't have the bright lights over there. But if you're looking straight out on this, straight ahead, when you walk and hit that center mark, you don't see anybody. You don't see that front row. You don't see that 50th row. You see nobody. So if you're worried about standing in front of 100 of people, 200 people, you're not even going to see them. Don't worry about that. When it comes to me, though, I've done years of drama class, so I'm used to that, doing performances and stuff. So I'm good with getting on stage. It's actually an adrenaline rush for me. I'm pretty much hopping in the back thinking, this is so fun. I can't wait to get on stage. And actually the individual who works the actually both Fan Expo and Anime North, I think they've seen me enough that they just look and they're like, you got this. Like, you're not nervous, because they're used to doing the pep talks for everybody. Like, oh, you're good, don't worry. And I'm just like, this is the most fun I get to have all year. So don't worry about it. Yeah, when it comes to your performances, the big things that I'd like to leave you with are make sure to prepare as much as you can, prepare your costume, make sure to go for a walk, make sure to rehearse your performance as much as possible. Don't feel like you need to do a full minute. If you're in a convention that has, a minute time limit with audio and blah, 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 blah. Some of them even have videos. In the States, I've seen you could do a big backdrop video. That's so cool. I've never done one of those. Would love to. But don't feel like you have to do a full minute, and don't feel like you have to do a certain thing like that. Do whatever feels good for you and what you think the character would do. If your character comes out and he's mean and grumpy, and act mean and grumpy. We're going to talk at the end about instead of Q&A, we're going to go through the top 5 cosplays I want to build and performing because I think they'd be fun performances. Prep on the day of. You have time. Talk to cosplayers in the back in the green room. Interact with them. Talk to them. Even if you want to talk about how nervous you are. We're all like a big, I don't want to say family because family is a little exaggerated, but we're all buds. Like we're all in the same thing. We're all in the same group. We're all in the same, doing the same thing. Don't feel nervous. We're all in this together. Plain and simple. And if you see me at a convention, come say hi. I'm more than happy to talk. I'm more than happy to get to know you and help you through whatever nerves you're going through or whatever questions you have. Lastly, I want to talk about awards. So with conventions and doing masquerades, there are awards. There are, however, different versions of awards for every convention. Fan Expo is an oddball. So I have more Fan Expo wins or awards, let's say, than Anime North. That is because I've done it more. But the problem is in the larger cosplay community, Fan Expo's awards don't mean as much as others. Now, Anime North and other conventions in the area, I don't remember exactly. There needs to be a website with all these details to help us. But there is a thing called the Cosplay Guild. And the Cosplay Guild is basically the governing body of cosplay awards and masquerades. Because Fan Expo was its own giant monolith that it doesn't follow the same guidelines as the Cosplay Guild. So if you win something at Fan Expo, if it's not a Best in Show or a certain division award, it might not hold as much weight if you compete at a convention as a Cosplay Guild. For example, I've never won a Best in Show. I've never won a division award. I have a lot of smaller awards from my division. Some cons have if you get a certain amount of small awards, you get bumped up. Some have, if you win a Best in Show, you get bumped up, blah, blah, blah. What I mean by bumped up is there are divisions. So there is novice for the new people. Actually, there's child, which they usually have their own, category, which basically everybody wins the kids awards. Novice, artisan, master, if I remember correctly. I think there's one more. Novice, master. Yeah, there's 3 or 4. I've never broken out of novice because I've never won enough awards to get me to the next round. I did compete in the second level at Anime North, but I don't know if I'm really qualified for it because of my awards, because of how long I've done this. Maybe, I don't know. If this is your first convention and you pull off a giant cosplay that has taken you years to build, you may not be a novice. They may bump you up because they know that if you're a novice, but you have a giant cosplay that blows everybody out of the water, you're a guaranteed winner. So you may get bumped up depending on your skill level. I remember, what was it? I think the 3rd year I competed at Fan Expo, and a guy came out in not the one that everyone knows, the Iron Man suit, which you can, buy a 3D printed pattern. This guy made the Mark I, the original one, and had like a door that he built and kicked open, and It was incredible. And they went, you're not going to be this. You're going to move up because you're going to blow everybody out of the water in the novice division. You can't do that. So be prepared to possibly bump up depending on what your cosplay is. And yeah, there are awards. Different conventions, again, have different awards. If it's a sponsored award, you may get a ribbon or a certificate and something else. For example, when I competed as Dunk Master Darius for Fan Expo 2012-13, that one was sponsored, coincidentally, didn't notice I got there, by League of Legends. And I ended up getting a 2-pack statue set from them. Everybody got that for competing in the League of Legends as a League of Legends character. So that is the end goal, is to get an award and move your way up. It can happen. You know, you don't have to always have the best costume. If you have a great performance, there are usually build awards and design awards, and there's also performance awards. So if you don't have the best cosplay, but you pull off a hell of a performance, you can sometimes win for that. My last Luigi one, that is 2 of my awards. Well, one of them was a build because I had so many accessories and such, and the other was a performance award because I did not a bad performance. I think I've done better, but everyone seemed to like it. But yeah, so to close this out, because we're now over an hour, when you're getting ready to do a performance, make sure your cosplay is at least 80% handmade and not bought. Prep as much as you can. Get that costume built as early as possible so you can wear it. Make sure you're not going to have anything fall off. Make sure you're comfortable in it. Rehearse your masquerade performance as much as possible. Get it into your head where it's almost muscle memory if you can. When you get there on the day, you're going to have lots of time to sit around. So try and be ready to sit. Talk to other cosplayers if you feel up to it. If you're nervous, don't feel like you have to. But every year I say I need to talk to more cosplayers in the backstage because you learn a lot from them. And a lot of them, almost everyone I would say, is willing to help you out as a new cosplayer, or even as an old cosplayer. When you're on stage, try your best to calm your nerves before you go up there. Remember, you can't see anybody when you get on that stage, so don't feel like you're going to be standing there naked in front of 500 people. It's not going to happen. You're going to see maybe 5 people in the audience on the sides. And just have fun. It's always a blast. No one there is going to make you look like an idiot. If, in the worst possible scenario, you have built this giant costume and you take 5 steps on stage and you fall flat on your face, no one is going to laugh. Everyone is going to feel so concerned for you that you'll probably have cosplayers run out and talk to you. So just try your best to enjoy it. It is a blast. You will get so much out of it. I highly recommend it to every cosplayer. I will be, again, hopefully, knock on wood, I'll be sending in my information to Fan Expo in the next couple days to probably, I'll be doing Dash Rendar. Now that he is almost complete, I'll probably be competing with him. So we'll see what happens. I hope it's going to be a good year. I hope to see all of you at Fan Expo. We're at the 1 hour, 3-minute mark. Let's run through quickly my top 5 cosplays that I want to build and perform in, and then I will let you guys get out of here. Number 1, I printed this over the weekend, and it is missing the top half of it. For those who are not in the 3D build realm, this is a face shield, and this is a face shield that's specifically built for a web slinger that you wear underneath the hood for Spider-Man. And that because when you wear a spandex suit over your face, it conforms to your face and it looks a little awkward. When you put that underneath, it gives you more of the comic book flat look. I'm getting a Spider-Man suit. A Spider-Man suit is on its way. I will be doing an unboxing when I get it. I don't want to spoil who it is yet because it is a specific version that I love. But yes, I would love to do a Spider-Man. I would love to do a Spider-Man, and I'm specifically picking ones in this that are either I don't have the skill level to do, or ones that I can't there's no point in doing because I can't win something with the Spider-Man, but I think it'd be fun to do a Spider-Man on the Masquerade stage because everyone loves Spidey. Number 2, I would love to do a Donkey Kong costume. I'm going to sweat my butt off if I did, but I would love to do DK because I would love to do the DK rap. I think that would be so fun, and I think the crowd would go nuts for the DK rap. But again, in a giant, hairy, I could just gorilla suit, like that's just going to be gross to sit in all day. So I'll probably never do it, but I think that would be really cool to do a DK costume. Big fan of the Donkey Kong series. Third, I'm a big wrestling fan. And there ain't many people in the wrestling world that have an entrance like Shawn Michaels. I would love, and I'm trying to figure out ways to build my own Shawn Michaels entrance attire with the chaps and the tights and the vests and all that. I would love to do Shawn Michaels. That was one of the reasons, for those who remember, I used to have long hair, and one of the reasons I grew it out was I was thinking maybe this will get me to build the Shawn Michaels thing, because I always said I would love to do Shawn, but I don't have the hair for it, and I would look weird with a wig. So I grew it out specifically for that, and I never ended up doing it within the year. So I cut it all off. So I would love to do Shawn for a Masquerade performance. I think doing his entrance would be amazing. Number 4 is one I've said under my breath 1,000 times I should do. And one year I'm going to do it. Again, this isn't going to win me something at Fan Expo or in a Masquerade, but I would love to do it because it's such an iconic characters that nobody does. It's one of those costumes that everyone knows, but nobody cosplays because of the requirements of how to make it work. I want to be a Blue Man. I want to cosplay as a Blue Man from Blue Man Group because I play drums, so I can keep beat. So I think that'd be pretty fun. Again, in blue makeup all day. And the biggest problem with that is that the Blue Men don't show any expression. So I'm that type of guy, especially from doing my Michael Myers costume. I would feel bad if I broke character because the Blue Men never break character. So I would love to do the Blue Man Group as a cosplay. So that might be one I pull out of my butt one year. Maybe I'll do a small con and do a Blue Man. That's so much blue makeup though. Oh man, that'd be so fun. But anyways, and lastly, I've said this behind people. I've said this to people not in public, but I'll say it in public. I will never do this, but this is more of a cost. Let me change the way I'm doing this. This is not a cosplay I would like to do, but I would love to see someone with the guts to do it, because this is an iconic character that everyone knows and everyone has a very strong opinion of, and nobody does it for a very obvious reason, but it's an iconic character that I would love to see someone build. But again, the guts, and let's be honest, he might get in trouble for doing it. I want somebody to do a Mecha Hitler from Wolfenstein. Everyone knows the character. It's such a cool build, but there's obvious reasons why nobody does it. But I feel like that character is so synonymous with gaming in general, because Doom and Wolfenstein were like the first 3D shooter games, that I think that would be such a cool build to see. But again, due to obvious reasons, I understand why people don't do it, but I don't know. I keep thinking back to Alice Cooper in an old 3-2-1, an old Alice Cooper interview that said when he started being Alice Cooper, he knew everybody had these rock heroes. He wanted to be a rock villain. And I think it'd be cool if you could find someone who had the let's just do it and be the cosplay villain. And I think that'd be kind of cool. And be like, you know what? I hate the character and I hate, what it means, but like that's some guts to make that cosplay. So yeah, those are my 5 that I think would be pretty cool to see on stage. So we're at, I think, one of the longest episodes. I hope you guys found some value in this. I hope you guys are understanding a little more about what goes into a performance, how to make your performance a little better, how to get rid of the nerves, how to, anything else. If you guys have any more questions about your Masquerade performance, how I can maybe give you some advice on what to do to get ready for it, please don't hesitate to message me on any of the social medias down there, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or here on the YouTube. But everybody, it has been a great Monday. Thank you all for tuning in. I will be back next week with a very cool topic. I have an old coworker who is a big, big, big fan of movie soundtracks. And I got to admit, I'm a big fan of movie soundtracks too. So we're going to talk about movie soundtracks next week. We're going to talk about what's the difference between a soundtrack and a score. Is there a difference? What are some of my favorite soundtracks? What are some of the ones that have weird choices and weird ideas? We're going to talk all about movie soundtracks next week. I hope you guys join in next week. Thank you all again for tuning in, and I will see you all next week for next week's Monday Night Nerd. See you guys later. Hey, thanks for watching Monday Night Nerd. If you enjoyed this content, please hit the subscribe button, like this content, and follow on social media for even more nerdy fun. See you soon.